email that Shar sends out. I don't know why it didn't work this year.
It's because this is a webinar. It's a little different.
No, they're all webinars.
Oh, they all
No, I don't think it's that. Okay,
Okay,
all's well
where's Bob?
that begins well. Here's
Bob's
Bob.
missing.
Here he
Hey, we
comes,
gotta-
running into the
start.
stadium.
Okay.
Right.
Hey, let's call the meeting to order. A roll call. Ms. Andrade Zuniga, you're present.
Present
The trustee
and
Land.
unmuted.
Okay,
Trustee Land is present.
okay, and the third person, trustees Lees Dwyer.
Present.
Okay, and trustee Hanley, good to see you.
Yes, I'm obviously
Yeah.
here.
I'm here and we're all here. Question, this is an open meeting and I'm not quite sure, but I suspect we should have a pledge of allegiance. Can somebody
Yes.
tell me if that's?
It's not on the agenda, but we're happy to do it.
Superintendent. Well, okay, better safe than sorry.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, actually, without being editorial, I think that was probably a good exercise, whether it was on the agenda or not. I think we all needed to say that. So
Good point.
and take a deep breath.
And think
So,
about our oath of office. Yeah.
Yes, all of the above. So first item, and I guess, are there any public comments that, or would we even entertain public comments? It's not on the agenda. I'm just going
Yeah.
by.
This is a board retreat. We have, if people want to comment before the board retreat or before we begin that discussion or on any of the consent items, they could, but we haven't had any cards or requests.
Okay.
We do not have any requests at this time.
Okay, well, let's move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull an item?
Yeah, I wanted to pull the change order for the Peninsula High School.
That's the last, I think that's the third one. The
Yeah.
third.
Yeah, I don't have the
Yeah,
agenda
it's
right.
C3, yes.
Okay, we'll remove C3. Is there a motion on the balance of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Boy, I guess we have to do roll call. I gotta totally retrain I'm totally going on instinct at this point. Trustee Andrade Zuniga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Okay, trustee Land,
Yes.
trustees Linda Lees Dwyer,
Yes.
trustee Hanley,
Yes.
and I vote yes, so it passes 5-0. We'll move on to item C3.
Yeah, I had a question. Let me just pull it up here for a second. There's two items on there that I think item 4, where it says a change as a result of architectural oversight. And I think there's one other one on there. Yeah, item 2 is a change of design revision and oversight. And you add them up and they add up to, something around I think they're $160,000 or so. So I guess my question is, and number one, what happened? And number two, can we reclaim some of that? Because they were errors, it seems, in those instances. And, that kind of adds up to like real money.
Yeah.
Liz, I think you, we talked a little bit about this and you were going to provide some answers here. You're muted right now. Liz, you need to mute.
Unmute.
Liz, can you unmute yourself?
I don't think she hears us.
Yeah. That's
Liz,
just an image. She's
Liz,
not,
can you hear us?
Liz? No.
Liz, we can't hear you.
Uh-oh. She's got a text, so she hears us. She's texting.
Oh, let me call her.
Yeah.
Call Liz McManus.
Uh-oh, he's talking to his phone. This
Peter?
Could be a problem.
Peter, what item were you referring to? You had two items, right? Which
Yeah,
ones were they?
two items. One is
Hey, Liz, we
item
can't hear you.
Item 2 and item 4.
Got it.
Why don't you do this? Why don't I put you on speakerphone and then people can hear us talking and you'll go through. So let me put you on speakerphone, okay? All right, so now we have Liz. Boy, we're thank God for multiple technologies. Liz, can you, I think you heard, the question was about those change orders, as we mentioned, and the architectural design question. So if you could answer those, I think that'd be helpful.
Okay, I'm sorry, my computer's coming in, I hear every word. But the change order is being presented to Rodana. The bottom line is they did $58,000. I do not have the document in front of me because I was expecting to be able to look at it on my computer and whatever, the internet is kind of crazy. So, but the issue was the design oversight. On item number 2 and item number 4, these were design oversight issues. One of them had to do with the affected the foundation. It did not change the location of the awning. So the awning was the reverse side, and it was the wrong size, and it could not be used. So
I'm not really understanding.
Hey, Liz, hold on a second.
But in addition to that, they had
Liz, hey, Liz,
they had to change
Liz.
their location down, which was never
Sorry.
done. It was not work. So the issue on the change.
Hey, Liz,
was
Liz.
about one
Hey, Liz. Yeah, I can now. Would the world come to an end if we brought this on the 21st? Okay, so let's retake this on the 21st if it's not time sensitive, okay? Okay, all right, perfect. Yeah, we're doing that on the 21st. We're doing the BAC on the 21st. All right. Yeah, thank you. And then you're done. You can go. Bye. Okay, all right, we're going to do it on the 21st.
Okay, so then that's the consent agenda, and we'll carry over item C3 to the 21st. So then that gets us to the, hold on, to board operations and the, update on protocols and operations. So Superintendent, you want to kick this off?
Yeah, so let me just say a couple things. First of all, we've had Trustee Zuniga with us the last meeting. If this was in normal times, she would have joined us at California School Boards Association, gone through that experience with us together, had a chance to see each other in various in-person opportunities. We would be fully integrated and sort of know her. I know all of you have made contact, had conversations and all that, but because of the Brown Act, we haven't had a chance to get together. In addition, this is a long-serving board. I don't know the average tenure here, but it's fairly long. And a new board member changes everything. When you have somebody in, they replace somebody. The dynamic is different. The protocols are worth looking at again. Ms. Zuniga has particular skills, interest in the board, needs to know more about you, and then more important, I think, needs to share sort of who she is and what had her run for the board and all those pieces and what she heard during the campaign that she thinks is important. So I think it's important for us to have those conversations. For me, it's also the mid-year. It's a good time for us to review the goals that we set out at the beginning of the year that Ms. Zuniga may have questions about. We've had discussions every Tuesday since she won the election. We've been having conversations and she's been meeting with staff, but there hasn't been this kind of opportunity. So I think what would work, if you guys are all good with it, is for Ms. Zuniga to share a little bit about herself, her background, some of her experiences, and then we'll have a free-flowing conversation that can touch on a lot of these things, a lot of the topics in terms of protocols and the like. Ms. Lees Dwyer, I see your hands up.
Yeah, does Mr. Griffin want to call on me?
Yeah, I'm sorry, your hand wasn't, it was sort of,
How's
yeah,
that?
it was, if you put your
Okay.
hand up and that's one of the protocols, because it is kind of hard to watch the screen, but I'll try to do better.
Okay,
Yes, Ms.
so
Lees Dwyer.
thank you. I want to make a comment. First, I think this is a good idea that we have this retreat time because things have been so crazy for quite a while now with this whole COVID thing, and we don't ever, come together physically in a group, and I think this is appropriate. Second, we've never had a new board member do what we're doing tonight, this afternoon. No one that I know of has ever been given the opportunity to talk about anything, their election, their interests, their background, what they heard. None of that has ever happened before. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. This may be a very good thing. And so as we listen to this, I think we should consider making that part of a protocol or whatever in the future, so that when new people do come on this board, we have sort of a retreat orientation with the other board members. And I think that's, this is a new thing, and I think we should really look at it as something that we would continue.
Trustee Land.
So being the newest member before Lihia,
Yeah.
we never got to do that. So I feel like I wish we did get to do it when I got on board. It was kind of like a baptism by fire. So I really enjoy this idea, and hopefully Lihia, we can get to know each other and and start sharing. So
Yeah.
I think there's an opportunity here. It's just I'm a little jealous. So all right.
You haven't been a new board member for 8 years or
5, dude, only 5.
Yeah, it just seems like 8 years. So
Yeah, exactly. It was baptism by fire. My first meeting, like, oh yeah, I know what you're doing.
Well, and I don't know, Trustee Hanley, if you want to join in on the conversation here.
No, I think it's fine. I think it's a very good idea.
Mhm.
No.
The thing we normally would have, because a lot of this pre-COVID, you would get to know people either at CSBA or you'd show up at a meeting, at a dedication, at a play, at a football game. We'd all see each other at various activities, and it's not happening. And I miss all that stuff, but I even think, given the where we are, this is a good activity, even if we were meeting in person, particularly with this group that's been around working together for quite a while. So
let's consider this the first one.
okay.
Go,
Well,
Lihia.
Lihia,
I
go.
appreciate it. I enjoyed having conversations with all of you before all of this. I think this is really important, especially for onboarding, to make, help people feel comfortable and just to get to know each other, because you guys have worked together for so long, and there's always a culture amongst a group of people, and dynamics and how everybody interacts. And so I'm excited to join the group, and I'm really grateful to be here. So I really wanted you guys to really understand who I am as a person, and especially with my disability. There's never been someone like me here. So also, in your lives, you might encounter somebody like me, or somebody with a similar type of disability, and it may be helpful. But I'm really doing this to create understanding and more community amongst ourselves, because we all are going to have something, that sets us apart from each other. So I really appreciate this time. I think you guys know pretty much the gist of who I am, like where I'm from, where my family's from, and what I bring to this table. But I wanted to share something with you specifically, especially because of accessibility and accommodation. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's see. And forgive my senior citizen laptop. It's very, very it's very mature, so it sometimes takes a little bit. Come on, tell me if y'all can see this. My
I saw it.
service
I
is
think it's
terrible.
loading. It's loading for
Yeah.
presentation.
It's still
Yeah.
loading.
Yeah, but I saw a little bit of it.
Hope it comes up.
No worries.
This is bad technology meeting or
Yeah.
technology trial meeting.
Bad juju. Bad technology juju.
There we
Definitely.
go.
Here we go.
So here's a little bit about me, and this is one of the most important parts about me, along with my culture and my community. I have a disability. Clearly, it's hard because of COVID. You can't really see me physically, just my face. But I use a power chair to get around, and I have some significant paralysis. So and this is a picture I typically use when I talk about my disability. In 2009, on January 17th, my children and I were in a really bad car accident where we rolled over, and in the accident, I became a quadriplegic from a severe spinal cord injury. So 1 in 50 people have a spinal cord injury, which is a lot of people in the United States. And one of the leading causes is a car accident. The second and third are falls and violence. So any type of gunshots and just any type of violent behavior you can think of. So my diagnosis was a C5C6 complete quadriplegic. Complete means that I have less than 1% chance of recovery, which is because of the severe effect of your spinal cord. An incomplete injury will allow you more mobility because it doesn't mean you completely sever your spinal cord, which when I do things very well. So I severed my spinal cord. It affects everything below my chest, including anything below my elbows, so like my hands, my fingers, breathing, sensation, mobility. So I utilize a series of like personal attendants that will help me with every single thing I do. So from eating to like getting dressed, getting out of bed, everything. So which sometimes poses a problem when somebody quits, right? It really puts a strain on my activities of daily living and what I have to do during the day and just my work and things like that. There's a great website, unitedspinal.org, that you can read about all of the different like nuances and things that go, and that are involved in what this means. These pictures are some pictures of me early on in the hospital where I was severely injured. I had a ventilator. I wasn't supposed to breathe on my own, which is great that I am. But there are some, some effects that stayed with me. So I just want you all to know, because sometimes it's tough for me when I use different equipment and it's like trial and error. For example, like at the last meeting, it was really hard for me to unmute, mute. And sometimes that happens. The weather really affects my disability, the temperature. So because spinal cord injury affects your nervous system and your autonomic system, your body temperature regulation is severely affected. So I go from like being really, really, really freezing cold, like hypothermic cold, to being like overly heated like within a matter of minutes. But typically for me, I'm always cold. So the cold really affects my muscles, and it can also prevent me from moving around as much as I can. So with that said, also with the power chair situation, accessibility is extremely important. So whenever we have something off-site, or even at the district office, there are specific, accommodations that I need, height adjustments for tables and clearance. My chair is it's not tiny, but it's not huge. So it's pretty compact, so it can fit in different places, but I have to be kind of angled in certain ways to be able to function. So like I said, I wanted to share this with you because it's something I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of being disabled, and I'm very proud of my community. I'm very proud of being Latina. I'm very proud of who I am as a person. So I really also want to relay this to our students. I really want to show that disability pride is important, because it'll definitely affect your achievements and your outlook and your perspectives. Although sometimes it's pretty difficult. So we all have our moments. It's not peaches and cream all the time, but I bring this to you because I want to be part of this group, and I want you to know that I trust you enough to share this with you. But also when you encounter other people that, we have certain things we deal with. So yeah. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Trustees Lees Dwyer.
I just have, I guess, more of a comment than a question, because once when I was on the phone with you, I said I wanted to get to know more about you, and that was what I wanted to know. I wanted to understand the impediments, the things that you overcome, that you have overcame, and then the things that you deal with and try to overcome every day. Because I think that I was, when we first talked, I was really, you're very intelligent, and I think that's probably one of the reasons that you're doing so amazingly well, that you do so much, and that you have a great mind, and that's allowed you to make the best use of the situation that you ended up in. And I have tremendous respect for that. And I think you're right that students can, all of us, but especially students, can benefit from knowing that, look what you've accomplished, look what you've been able to do, and how you're able to work around things and get things done. So I really appreciate you sharing this information with us.
Trustee Land.
Lehia, I just think you are an amazing role model for people. So I think that's incredible. So thank you for sharing the story. I do have some personal questions, if you don't mind. Because
please ask anything. I'm an open book.
Looking at your pictures, are you in the same type of wheelchair, or have you, because that's one question. And then the other question is, it sounds like you really improved a lot better than people had been, than what was anticipated, because you have movement in your head, you have movement in, I see your arms sometimes. And so have you had a really, have you recovered in some ways? Just curious.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I used to have to drive my wheelchair with my head because I didn't have any mobility from my shoulders down, like really from my neck down. Since I no longer need the ventilator, my chair is a little more lightweight. I can drive my chair now with my hand. although my fingers don't move, my wrist is, it's okay. My arm moves like as a whole unit, not so much like so isolated. But I have improved a lot. I can have more control of my shoulders, my arms, my trunk to a I guess to a limit. But yeah, so that there's just like other things like I said, like the eating and the drinking and things that really that you have to do with your hands, is getting dressed, showering, all that. It's tough, and so because I can't walk and I don't have any control um, from the chest down, that's rough. But yeah, so there has
Thank
been
you.
some improvement.
Thanks for sharing. I
Amazing.
appreciate that.
Thank you. And so,
Trustee.
with that said too, I want to make sure also that our board, there's so many things that are involved in the disabled community now that we've tried to change and like expand. So one of the things that I would love for us to do is to do a people first language training, which some language is evolving out of the vocabulary that we use to describe ourselves. So if you're open, I mean, I would love to connect us with somebody that could give us a short training, or a lengthy one, whatever you'd like. And then also talk about like etiquette when it comes to disability, because just some things are outdated and they change. So
That'd be great.
Trustee Handley, you want to weigh in?
No, I think it's it's an inspiring story that, you've obviously overcome, some real difficult challenges. And, it's an important perspective to have on the board, I think, for us and for students, to be able to see that and know that, and know that someone in the community has been elected to represent the community. I think those are all important characteristics, important factors to bring forward. So I appreciate you sharing that.
That is a quite a compelling story, and I don't know you. I don't know that we collectively know you enough to talk about your personal traits or characteristics. I just got to believe you just got to be the most stubborn, determined person in the world, and that anybody that tells you you can't do something, you're going to prove them wrong. I think that's just, I got to feel that's your nature. I mean, because it looks like you're gonna do whatever you set your mind out to do.
Well, and you're certainly a great role model for your children, for your sons. The can-do attitude.
yeah, it's it's like you just roll with it. You do what you can. And yeah, thank you. Well, thanks for welcoming me and for being receptive and open, and I'm looking forward to our work together. So
How many kids do you have?
I have two. I have two boys. I have a 23-year-old and an 18-year-old. And so my 18-year-old just graduated from Hillsdale. So yeah, and my older one went to Burlingame. So we've got, and then middle college. So we've got some, and now they're in college. So it's neat. Yeah, it's neat to see the transitions.
Yeah, great.
Well, hopefully we'll get some of this training, because I think one of the issues, particularly there's an age gap. I know when I've dealt with potential clients, and I had a client that they wanted gender neutral terms, and I have had to work on finding, and I don't always, because my gender neutral term used to be guys, and I meant it as a gender neutral term, and I've had to work on all of that. So I'm hopeful that we will learn certainly the proper, the terminology and ways to say things so that we're inclusive and bring people in and don't have people thinking, well, we're a bunch of, or at least I'm a putz. I don't want to, I may be a putz, but I don't want people thinking I'm a putz.
Yeah, no, and disability is definitely a culture. It's a part of human diversity, and I like to share that, and just all the intersections with our our cultures by ethnicity and race and things like that. Everything's so intertwined, and then just as we age, there also can come disability. So it's so intersected that it's important for us to acknowledge specific types of just inclusion.
Mhm.
Okay, well, welcome to the board.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that, Leah. And I thought we would use the rest of the time is, what I was thinking is that we would spend at least another 25, 30 minutes on sort of other protocols that are, sort of things. I mean, this is obviously a much different time. I would be getting together with board members 1 or 2 at a time for lunch. Or now we're in shelter in place. We might go visit schools, and to Bob's comment, see each other at various events, whether it's plays or athletic events or musical performances or the like. And we don't have those kinds of things. So I think it's important that we stop and spend some time on this. We're always working on our communication, the weeklies I send out, the other emails that I forward to you. I want to talk a little bit about those kinds of things. Lee and I've talked a little bit about other organizations that she's been a part of that have had protocols. For an example would be, something that, we don't have written down, but I try very hard to say, if I talk to one board member, I share that information with all board members. Or if a question is asked by one board member, it's shared with everybody. A couple of thoughts I had is I was looking for a good district protocol that we could look at and review at a meeting or during board operations. We could have individual conversations about various things that are going on or that we need to talk about. Or we could talk about some of the ways that for board members here that the communication has been good, or ways that you would like to see us either change the agenda or do other activities or study sessions or other types that are less formal like this, where we just talk about the state of the district. So that was my purpose here. I'm open to whatever thoughts you have, and this I think is a good time for us to talk through that.
Well, I'm glad you started with communications, because I think communications is just so critical and so important that, if we're going to work as a team, that we have that. And I know we've been working on that. And I guess communications is one of those ongoing projects, that you just never, you never get where you're fully satisfied with the level of communications. But I think we need to continue that. I know, the Friday reports, I think, were a major step, because we did not have Friday reports before you showed up. But Trustee Land.
So yes, I would agree that the Friday reports, and they have improved with our discussions over time to include the kind of detail that we were expecting. And I think that's improved. I will want to talk, I'm glad we started with communication, because I think you mentioned it yourself that we used to meet together in 1s and 2s and groups to communicate. And I think with the breakdown with the pandemic, I definitely have, not alone, that the drifting of information and connection has been severe in my mind, where I feel disconnected from you, particularly Kevin, about communicating ideas. I'm not the president or vice president, and I'm definitely feeling like I'm not sure where everything's at. And I need some kind of connection more regularly, and definitely feeling like the information isn't provided to all the members. And I think you have discussions with Lihia, and you have discussions with Robert Bob because he's president, or Bob and Peter. And I feel just as one of the just trustees that I'm not getting, and I'm saying that because I think it's changed from where it was, because it was fine for a long time. I mean, we had discussed it, we improved. The one-on-one meetings really helped because they give us kind of an insight into where you're at. But without that, I really feel disconnected. And, you know, we've had these very good meetings where we've, you know, talked about, hey, every time, what are we doing with the pandemic? And we have the updates, and you're very good about that. And we get in a lot of depth, and it's a very long diatribe of this is where we're at. That's huge. And I think that's critical, but there's some nuances and some real, you know, one-on-one conversations that are missing as a result. And I think that can be improved. And I think that's really important here.
Yeah, that's good. It's helpful.
I guess, should I go next?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
you're,
I think that there was an effort made in the last couple of years to do the 2x1s or 1x1s or whatever, but we never developed any sort of routine. I felt like it's been very haphazard. It would happen, and then a couple of months go by, and then, oh yeah, well, we should get together. And I would like, I think it should be a routine. I don't know whether protocol is the right word, but I think that there should be a regular routine where you do spend individual FaceTime, you know, with trustees. Because I think that's very important, because we need to understand you as much as you need to understand us and each other. So when you do the 2x1s, two of us, one of you, we get to know another trustee in a little different setting and have conversations. And I think that's really valuable to us. And I think that a focused effort on that, once we become able to be together again, would be really good. It would be good for the board. On the Friday memo, the Friday thing that comes out, I agree that that's a really important method of communication. And sometimes it has so many attachments, and I'm like, oh, I have to read all this and I need to get to it. But that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. For a time we were getting them from other people, like Liz, maybe Kirk, Julia, and now we have Ms. Wade. And I think that it would be very valuable if each of them either did a short memo or just gave you information to share with us about what's going on within their different departments, so that we do know, you know, this is happening, that's happening, because it's much better to know what's going on in the departments without having a formal report every quarter, every you know, half a year, whatever. It would seem like we would have less need for formal reports on the status, for example, special ed, if in fact a report was being incorporated into the weeklies. The other thing is the need to know. And I think there's a lot of things that we need to know. And a lot of times the things that we need to know aren't always good news. It could be bad news. So it's particularly important that if we're going to hear some bad news, that we hear that we may be getting bad news before we get bad news. So when something happens that could be something we really are going to become very concerned about, it would be good if you either gave us a call, you know, and said, hey, you know, this is coming down the pike, here's what we're doing, you may hear about this. It might be in the paper tomorrow. It's always good to get ahead of any bad news or any troubling things that are going on, that we know it before we read it somewhere, or we get an email from someone, or you're telling us that it's bad news. So I would really appreciate that. I think that's probably it from my thinking at this moment.
I have a question.
yes.
How often do we do any like team building or any sort of like, well, now that I'm new, it would be nice for us to like do some sort of collective, just communication training, or I don't know, whatever would help us to understand each other. Yeah, how often do you guys do that?
Trustee Land.
I
That's
wish
not
we
good.
did. We do team building. I think there's a lot of potential there. I know that we do this at our district PD and that sort of thing, and I've done it a lot, but we do not do that at all here. that is something that I think we need to, that I'm glad Leahia brought it up, because I'm right behind her on that.
It really helps me like in understanding, what or how to communicate, with people and how to understand. Because sometimes, we get information and we don't always interpret it in the right way, or maybe we think it's going to come out one way, but it's so important to know each other that way. And like I was saying earlier, like you guys have worked together for a while, but I don't know you that well, so it would really be helpful to me if we could do something like that.
Trustee Hanley, you want to throw something in the fire here or in the pot? But oh, go ahead.
No, I don't have anything right now.
Boy, I'm going to record this moment, this one. Oh, boy, my dog even recognized Peter didn't have anything to say. Go ahead, Trustee Lees Dwyer, and then.
I guess I'm not sure we really know each other that well, Leahia.
I was going to agree.
Because we haven't done, I mean, if you asked me to tell you 10 things about Peter, I'd have to kind of try to think of 10 things. He's tall. He is involved with charter schools. I'd have to really think. And or Gray or anybody actually. So I think, I don't think we have not done team building, and we have the Brown Act we always have to deal with, but I don't think that we all really know each other as well as you might think we do. So,
Trustee Land.
So I'm going to connect something. So, we're using the National Equity Project, and one of their modules is about getting to know you and really who are you, and the different circles and spheres that you create. I've done that several times in different districts, and I think it's a great activity that we could do here with us to get to know. So there is definitely some things we can cross-pollinate here. I'm sure probably the principals had to do this with the National Equity Project, or at least some of the staff. So I'm up for it. I don't mind being on the committee to help drive this, because that's what I do for a living as a principal. I think it's important that we do some team building, and I think it's important to get to know each other a little bit. I think, sadly, Leahia, I think we all have kind of our stereotypic roles, our Uber roles, and we could say Bob's the accountant, Linda's the lawyer, Peter knows his stuff in education because of the charter school stuff, and I'm the educator. And you can, and those are some Uber stereotypes that need to be broken down as well, because stereotypes are not always a good thing. So I think it needs to go beyond. I think there was a meeting where both Bob and I had to really say, wait a minute, we're people of color. You didn't realize that, for some obvious reasons, and in a meeting, and it was kind of hurtful for both of us, I think, that we had to point that out. And so I think it's important that we do some exploration here as a board. And I think it's important, and I feel sad that we haven't done that. So you're bringing up some really good points.
Thank you. Well, especially our value system. I mean, we all come with our own set, right? And although some of us will intersect, it's important to know that in priorities and things like that. So, and it really speaks to people's strengths. So, and what we can work on as a board.
We're ending at 5.
So, yeah, it's very helpful.
So we all want to get to know each other, and I have to say a couple of things. And number one, and this is free forming, the communication that the 2x1s or whatever these two, they really occurred when the superintendent wanted to do something. So, in all truthfulness, and anybody who disagrees, and the superintendent, you're welcome to disagree, because you could tell that, we needed to have that coffee, and that's fine, because they were, in all cases, they were important decisions. There were things we needed to know, but that's how you could always tell that the ones that, hey, Roberta wasn't going to let us off the hook. and we were going to be at the appointed place at the appointed time, which I think is critical, and we need to do that. And I think we're kind of saying we kind of need to talk other times when we don't have some impending issue, and we can kind of chit chat and, and kind of see how, curriculum's going, how special ed's going, how the building program's going, et cetera. So, but it's not hardly gonna, we got to break through COVID here to really get where we can, because even, this medium of communication is not a conversation. It's not really where you can have a kind of, how are you doing? How's the district doing? It's still formal. It's still kind of artificial, but we'll break through any year now. So the other thing, and I have to apologize, this, and I've done team building. I've fallen into people's arms that I didn't trust. And I emerged unscathed, and and we've done it at work. Matter of fact, we've done it at work. And our thing was, we love the food bank. And if there's a place to do team building, we can go all husk corn at the food bank. We support the Alameda County Food Bank, and that was a good activity. But people had to pull me there kicking and screaming, because I don't have a lot of time, and I dedicate a lot of time, and people know I spend a lot of time on district stuff. And then the other stuff, I sell time for a living, and that doesn't leave much time to kind of be touchy-feely. I am touchy-feely, but not the way you kind of think that, we're going to all line up at 8 o'clock in the morning and wear work clothes and pull weeds together or something. So.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Hey.
Yeah,
Yes, Linda.
I'm risk averse. So, that wouldn't work the falling on each other would not work for me.
Yeah.
Let's not do that either.
Yeah.
She'd be wanting to see everybody's worker comp cert before she'd get up on that log to fall backwards.
Oh,
So,
man.
there is one thing, and I'm going to go to the Friday report, and actually it's part of the goals thing. Okay, I see that Yancey is on the he's on the call, and welcome, Yancey. It's good to see you there. We're probably not going to have anybody who's going to have that hands-on Liz report, or are we, for a period of time? How are we going to get communications in that Friday report that's of sufficient detail to keep us happy?
Well, so what I've met with I think it's 4 people who are in charge of the different people who reported to Liz, and I've asked them to give me a weekly report on Friday that I would incorporate into my weekly. So you should start seeing that on a regular basis. And some of it might not, after the filter, may not get to you if it's just going to make your weekly too long. But that's the idea, is to keep those pieces going that way, Bob.
Okay, yeah, because I think that is one of those areas that Liz kind of knew like the back of her hand, and I'm sure she could put her report together. She probably typed a few sentences every day, and by the end of the week it was there. I know we're going to have a period of transition there, and I want to make sure that we do get, we get communications on that. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Can I go ahead, Linda.
Another thing I want to say about the weekly is that I think that the weekly can be used as a vehicle to help us appreciate the work that's being done. And I'm going to go to special ed again. If Holly gives you a report that says we held this many IEPs and we've had this many meetings and we've done this kind of training and we've been meeting with these people and doing all these different things in support. We're looking at this program where that's meaningful. That really gives us the opportunity to appreciate the work that's being done. Same thing for Julia, same thing for the people that are doing Liz's report. I think it's good for us to be able to appreciate a lot of the day-to-day that's taking place that we just do not see. So.
Yeah. Trustee Land?
So since we're still on communication, can I go back to something on just general communication?
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm very critical of is how we conduct our board meetings in the round way we go from last person to first person and go boom, boom, boom. Yes, it's very organized. Yes, it's very structured. But to be very honest, compared to my board in Burlingame when I was on the Burlingame school board, we had much more iterative conversations where I could build off of what maybe Peter said, and Peter could build off what Lihia said, and we can have a discussion of some sort. I know we do that once in a while when it comes to like our study sessions, which I think are a little bit more informal. Again, I'm not trying to push one thing, but it's definitely, I see both sides of it. I get why we do the order. It's just easier to say, okay, speak your piece and move. But again, we're not building a conversation. We're just talking and then we're moving on. And I have some concerns about that. We've been doing it for years and I've gotten used to it, but it's definitely not what I'm used to in a board. The last board that I was on for many years. And I'm wondering if we can think about that. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe I should just shut up, but tell me what you guys think about it. I mean, is it the system that needs to be, or do we need to kind of adjust somehow?
Well, isn't that and since my mic is still open, isn't that sort of whoever presides over the meeting, they get to choose the method? I mean, and I'm open to all the comments and suggestions. Accountants, we're repetitive. I run the same route. I walk the same route. For me, it's a big deal when I go left to right rather than right to left. And we've had board members who refuse to take the first crack because they want to hear what other people say. So, I mean, I don't know that anybody is locked into that particular forum. Now, the one thing I will say about that, in cases, and I don't say a lot, and and I try to say points, and I try to get out of the way because I don't want to ramble, and sometimes I don't really make my point because I might say something and somebody else says it, but they say it more eloquently, or they take more time to say it, and then somebody says, "Oh, that was a great idea over there." But I think you also end up with meetings and discussions that maybe are rich discussions that just take a long time. And I'm kind of, let's get at it. And I'm like I say, I'm open, and I'm only president for however many more meetings. I can't wait for that to get my term over, that it might run a while. Trustees Lee Dwyer.
Okay, so yeah, I think keeping it simple would be good as far as like our names. So if you just say Trustee Dwyer, that's enough for me. And that might make it easy on you if you just say Trustee. I mean, it's up to other people, but Trustee Dwyer, that's enough, because it seems like it's always a mouthful whether the president's going to. Mark did this a lot. Sometimes he'd say Linda, sometimes he'd say at least, it was all over the place. So I'm happy keeping it very simple. Trustee Dwyer, that's it, to make it easy for you, because you have to call on us to vote every time. So.
Peter, you got anything to say about abridging the free speech, the rights of free speech?
No, I think it would be good to try to get to more of a conversation. I mean, and I don't think each of us necessarily has to speak on everything.
Mhm.
I don't know that that's necessary. I think, and I don't know that you have to start at the end. I think you can say who wants to start, rather than saying, rather than assuming that you're going to start at the end. And I don't know, maybe you'll get 4 hands go up simultaneously if you say that, and then you just have to pick one. But it may be that it's better to to assume that, you know, one or two people are going to lead off the discussion that have more delineated thoughts on an issue, rather than, you know, sometimes it feels kind of forced, that people feel forced to have to say something, you know, even though they don't have much to say.
That's true.
And I think, you know, I think maybe we should consider saying, you know, who wants to start, you know, or something similar to that. And, or, you know, does the board, you know, I'm chair of another board, and I don't start with the same person every time. I say, does the board have any comments? And I look for somebody to say, yeah, I got something to say.
Okay.
You know, rather than, you know, calling, you know, starting to call on somebody, you know, and I've been chair of that board for a year now. And I've been chair of that board, you know, 3 years previously, not right previously, but I've been 3 years president of the board, and I've always done it that way, rather than you know, saying we're going to start at, you know, the past president, you know, and work our way up to the chain, or some other way of delineating an order. You know, and sometimes I get it's also a 5-person board right now too. And sometimes I get 4 other comments, and sometimes I get 0. And sometimes nobody has anything to say. And I don't think that's necessarily good. And sometimes I'll actually try to prompt somebody to say something. But I think we can be a little more less rigid or less organized, and more open to being flexible.
Less organized, just what we want. Lydia.
I really like, since we're on Zoom, I really like using the raising hands on the panel for the participants. Sometimes that's kind of helpful, especially if we're like in the larger general meetings with the public, because it just, I don't know, it makes it a little bit more organized in that sense. Although if it's less formal, like right now, then maybe, you know, we can raise our hands, and only because sometimes it's hard to raise, and it's hard not to talk over people on Zoom. You don't know who's gonna talk next, who wants to talk next, because it's different, you know. But also the what I do appreciate though, Bob, is your ability to be very concise, and in the meetings, like, have them be very specific to the time, and be mindful of how long we're going on and on. Because I don't think anyone wants to be online for ever and ever, right? But I do like that. I like the cohesiveness, or the concise meetings. So thank you.
So the superintendent wants to say something, and he even used the raise your hand function.
Sorry.
The one thing I do believe in the 80-20 rule, so that the 80%, we find the important stuff. We spend 80% of the time there, and we spend 20% of the time on the other perfunctory stuff. Anyway, superintendent.
So this is it's your board meeting, right? We're here to support them. I remember Mr. Hanley and Mr. Griffin, when we talked on Monday about this agenda, this was one of the topics that we talked about, was, you know, the potential of raising your hand here. And I just checked, if you go to participants down here and see who is, you can tell who's got their hand up. And I think, Mr. Griffin, we talked about how you sometimes when somebody's sharing their screen, it's hard to know who has their hand up. It might, to Peter's point, it might allow us to then see who wants to go first even, right? If you've raised your hand, then maybe that's your signal that you're going first, or that you want to talk about this item. And, we all know which items are going to take more time to talk about and which ones aren't. But if somebody's raised their hand, that sort of could be a signal. The other thing that we talked about was the possibility of at least starting to put out, and maybe this is, on our agendas, how long do we expect an item to take? So then we're starting to focus on, what are the big issues? And so when we do board agenda planning, we look at it and say, okay, this is a big item we should be spending, to your point, 80% of our time on, and then other items less on. But we're available to do it however you want.
No, and that, I think that is, important, particularly in light of 5-hour meetings, where we spend 5 hours and we, and we focus on whatever the first item is. We're all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and it may be consent, or it may be the awards. And then we get around to bond sizing or financing or something, and it's 10 o'clock, and I wake up at 3 a.m. and so I'm kind of like, let's get through the meeting. So but I think it's it's a better way, and I we can have these conversations, and we can focus in on the important stuff and make it that way, and but we can't do that on every item and have 6-hour quality meetings continually. And we still got a bunch of meetings that we're going to be dealing with. I suspect we'll be dealing with frequent meetings most of this year. And I think we need to do quality work. So, by focusing on the important stuff and managing the time, then we can allow people to have those longer conversations. Now, trustees Lees Dwyer. Oh, trustee Land, sorry. I can't look at the attendees, the panelists, the side finger, the hand. I'm like, I'll work hard at it. I apologize, trustee Land.
So that's what I was going to make a point of. I raised my hand like Dr. Skelly did in the raised hand feature.
Yeah, I forgot.
If we want to go with that, I think it's just a consensus. If that's the way we're going to do it, I'm all for it, because it's either this or it's the raised hand. And I think we just have to get into the protocol of how to do that. So if we want to go with that, I'm totally for it.
But in a virtual background, your raised hand disappears more often than it shows.
I know. Yeah. It's like, oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Yeah. So I think if we're all in consensus, we just pick one and go with it. Either raise hands or raise hands on the other way. Either way. The second thing is I really appreciate what Dr. Skelly said. When I was president, again, picking items and how long meetings are going. And yes, because of the way things are, definitely things are going longer, especially because we're doing that kind of summary of update of what's going on, because we need it and it's important. I just think as president, you need to know to overestimate time. I think Dr. Skelly has a tendency to underestimate time. No offense, Dr. Skelly, but yeah. He thinks things will go for 30 minutes and it goes for 2 hours, but so just kind of keep that in mind when we do your scheduling.
We try, but and the interesting thing, and I'll get to the next raised hand. The interesting thing is there's so many statutory requirements that we have to fulfill. The LCAP, the second interim, the budget. There is a lot of things that Ed Code has is just struggling with. So, Linda.
I guess first I'd like to ask Lagia, which works better for you? If we have to click on the hand, or if you just wave your hand?
I think the clicking of the hand might be easier, because it's sometimes I can't get my hand up that high, or if I'm in a different computer, it might be easier to manipulate. Okay, so then let's go with the clicking of the hand, because that way we're all on the same page. Although right now I don't have an option to do that. I don't know why. If you open your side screen to panelists, if you click on panelists, then you'll see it, because I had to find it too. In the bottom right corner.
Yes, you got to do the participants.
Click on participants. I'm doing that, and I'm clicking more, and it doesn't have that option.
Did you open panelists?
Yeah,
Go to participants and then panelists and then go to the bottom right-hand corner.
yeah. It
It's
doesn't
not
have it.
there.
If you, on mine, if you click more, there's a raise hand.
Yeah,
option there.
usually
Yeah.
that's true, and I don't know why it's not like that today.
Oh,
Yeah.
It just has rename and edit profile picture.
Huh.
Oh, you're in the setup, you're in the log-on setup. The,
Leah, try the bottom of your screen where if you look across the bottom of your screen, maybe you see
Yeah.
something that says raise hand.
Yeah, all
You-
it has is share screen, pause, stop recording, participants.
click participants.
that's
Yeah.
where, and then it
Yeah,
shows.
it's on, but it won't do it. It's weird.
Are you on attendees or are you on panelists? You
On
you
panelists.
choose one or the other.
Yeah, I'm on panelists.
At the bottom, does it say invite, mute me,
Yes.
and then it's raise hand?
Oh,
Oh,
All right, we'll work
Okay,
on
well,
that.
we'll
Yeah.
time
set
for a
it
new
up.
new computer.
Yeah,
The other thing I wanted to say was that I think that the district has done a really good job on making the reports that we get at the meetings succinct. I know that in the last couple of years, there's been a big focus on the PowerPoint presentations and really cutting down the pages and delivering those as quickly as possible. And I think that's really been very good. And I just want to make sure we, because like for example, Brian Simmons, his reports, he really made them concise. And I think that's been really, that's really well received. And I agree with Bob that when we have the end, everyone's really kind of is exhausted. And now we're more visually exhausted than anything, which probably makes it all worse. But the personnel actions at the end seem to fit there well. The board updates, that sort of thing, that fits. But if there's anything that we really need to think about or that you think could take time, then you've really got to be very purposeful in putting that up near the consent agenda. So
special appearances.
yes.
Yeah.
And if we have people come to the meeting, vendors, people to present out from the outside, if we could do those first and get them home, particularly the attorneys that we're paying, my brethren, no. So, we do want to make sure that especially when we used to have like Greystone, they had to drive so far after our meeting and sometimes they wouldn't be on till really late. And that was kind of unfortunate. But now with Zoom, everyone's on an equal footing. So that's it.
Okay.
Just a couple of other things I wanted to mention. I think the point that Greg and Linda made about sort of the way we have it set up, first of all, we had so many meetings that I feel like you've been having to put in long hours at the board, and I really appreciate and honor how much time that's taken. But I do think that Linda, you and Greg, I need to get you into a rotation, and maybe it's just a short Zoom call. Half an hour, 45 minutes, check in. I think it's in some ways it could be easier than when we were trying to set up. Oh, can you make this time or something else? So we'll work on that. Let's see. There is always a better quality to talking to somebody versus a weekly. If I write it, even if I write it well, it's still hard for you to get the full meaning of what's going on. So we'll do that. And I appreciated your comments about it's sort of a Goldilocks thing, having the right length of the weekly with enough people there, without sort of having you get a 30-page document that you have to read every week. I need to continue to work on my enthusiasm to tell you bad news, right? So as soon as there's bad news, I need to be, I can't wait to tell you guys that. So that's something that we'll work on.
Misery loves company.
Yeah. So, okay. So that discussion has been really helpful for me. And I think you brought up some good points. All right, do you want to go to the next part of this, which is to talk a little bit about sort of a mid-year status report? This is another document that, we've struggled to find the right length of. If you remember, we've gone from, 30-page long updates, and then we've also had, shorter ones. This time what I attempted to do was just go through in a brief way and describe where we are. I mean, obviously this year is different than any other year, and some of the instructional pieces we haven't, we were ambitious and expecting to be back sooner than we are, and we haven't done that. I sent you this a couple of days ago. I'm happy to, whatever your pleasure is, to go through these with some broad comments or to answer any questions that you might have on it. So whatever your choice is.
So who wants to go first? Who's the blue hand? You're welcome.
Oh,
Do
should have
land.
used I should have used my other, I should have used my other hand, the one.
I'm just having, I'm trying to keep a little levity in this. Don't take ourselves too seriously
I
about the
appreciate
wrong
that.
items. So trustee Land, come on.
Okay, I'm on. I'm having internet problems, so we'll see. One of the concerns that I have is in the academic section. I mean, one of the things I see all of the things that we've talked about. I've seen these before with the LCAP and with what we've talked about in the mid-year goals. And I like how you set it up, and I like how each of the components are there. What I have a problem with, did Bob just disappear?
You did.
He was having
Okay.
problems.
Yeah, I thought it was me.
Freezing.
Okay. One of my concerns is I know we have our superintendent evaluation, and part of that was one of the lofty goals that we had, which I think is critical that I want to bring in here, which is that thinking outside the box, that really trying to push the envelope for a kind of think tank kind of thing. And I know that's a little bit bigger than these very specific mid-year goals and district goals. So I don't know how to incorporate that, because I think that ties into what I'm thinking every time I'm looking at this document. And I don't know how to incorporate that. So
Greg,
Yeah.
isn't that I thought that was found under goal 2, number 5.
okay,
Because
maybe.
that's create a task force to develop a radical proposal that would disrupt
Yeah.
the current
Yes,
education.
that's it. Okay, I was looking for it. I thought it was in goal 1, and I was
No.
okay. Got it. So I think that's something that I really want to focus on. I think that to me is one of my huge, real priorities that I think I know Peter and I both talk about quite often. And I think we need to really explore that, even to the degree that I don't think we've done. And so that's kind of where I'm at. I guess, Peter, you're chairperson now.
Are we helping, Ms. Chalkley, are we helping? There he is. Okay, now you're back.
So
You're
Bob,
muted too.
Muted.
so-
Yeah,
so
no,
Lou-
I didn't kick myself. I'm minding my own business, and somebody else, I don't know what happened. It just went kabooey.
So Bob, I'll repeat everything I just said. And I'm just kidding.
So,
You froze,
to your
Bob.
point, Greg, I think that's something that we need to give you a report on in January. There's, as I wrote in this write-up, there are things percolating in terms of middle college, in terms of summer school, and some of the other pieces that we need to look at. And we'll get you a report, this month for sure.
Oops, my hand.
What was the gist of, in one sentence, what was the gist of Greg's comment or question?
I could just repeat it in one sentence.
Yeah.
I really like that big goal that we had in goal 2 that was really talking about bringing a task force together to really think outside the box and be innovative. And I really want to focus on that. And I think that's my top priority. And I wanted to make sure that that was a priority in this discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Other thoughts as you look at those goals and things that, I see people's hands are up. Sorry.
Hold on. Okay, trustees. Oh, I'll call it trustee Hanley. I didn't see who got first.
I was first.
I think Linda was first.
Well, now you guys tell me random. Now you tell me take it in order. What? Help me, somebody. Trustees Lee's Dwyer.
Oops, it's just
Emails
Dwyer, thank you. Trustee Dwyer here. Looking at goal 2, number 5, where Greg started us, because that was the one that really kind of struck me too. I can understand why the task force hasn't been developed. I mean, given everything that's been going on, just everything that's been, that all the things works in progress. But when I read the percolating list, expansion of Mill College, that isn't new. Summer school activities that integrate recreation, that's interesting. I wanted to add some things to that list because I think they would be more disruptive actually. One would be lower class size. In classes where students are, we have you identify a number of, if you've got so many students struggling in a particular subject, that I would really like the task force to look at lowering class size in subjects that students, we can look at data and see where they struggle and lower the class size in those. Having homerooms, another idea that would really disrupt everything, which would connect kids. And looking at, rather than supporting the struggling student, if you had lower class size, you would be supporting the teacher who's working with the struggling student, so the student could maintain the connection to one person rather than having them working with 2 different people on the same subject, which I think might not be in their best interest and might divide their focus rather than allowing them to really learn the subject matter and connect with the teacher who is actually teaching it to them. So those are ideas that I wanted to throw into that group, because it seems like when we see, oh, and the other one was the group number 2 under section goal 2 is the student task force. I think that's a very good idea, but there should be at least one representative from that task force on number 5, the disruption task force, because I think their voices in that conversation would be particularly important. And everything I've heard recently in our meetings, when students speak and what they talk about, a lot of it comes down to a lack of feeling connected, a lack of feeling like they're part of something, that they have connections with different students from different groups. And I feel that if we look at how we connect students, how students keep, I hate, smaller class size would really connect students, could serve to really connect students to each other and to their teachers. So anyway, I'm just throwing out those to be added to the list for that task force.
Peter.
So I'm thinking along, I guess maybe it falls under that same category, but I'm thinking that we need to be spending some time about next year and recovery and how are we going to do this? And I just think if we go back to status quo ante, we're dead in the water. We're going to lose thousands of kids that'll never recover. They'll just never recover. And we're going to be getting, over the next 2 years, we're going to be getting, graduating 7th and 8th graders that'll have learning losses that, we've just not seen in this district for a long time. And how do we address that? So I think there's a number of things that we need to be thinking about, including over the next couple of summers. Can we change the way summer school is done? I think we need to seriously think about extending school year. I think we need to seriously think about the school calendar. I would like to think about providing professional development that allows us to get our teachers trained to provide 90-minute blocks for math and English language. because I think our students are going to need additional instruction. And, you know, I'm very much an E.D. Hirsch kind of folk on, you know, you've got to build that foundation or you're just not going to go anywhere. And that foundation is going to be lacking. And we got to get that foundation in place. And we're going to have to think about how do we get tutoring. You know, I think, you know, we need to think about the school day in a different way. You know, evening classes, late afternoon classes. How do we serve families in a different way, in a better way? You know, this is the time where the whole world has been shaken up, and there's no reason to put it back together the exact same way when the exact same way was never working. It was never working the right way. So don't put it back together the same way that it was. So, you know, now's the time to put forward a different way and a better way. And there's examples out there that work. And now we've got to be brave. We've got to show some innovation and boldness and courage to say we're going to do something that's better.
Well, I think from all the heads that are nodding, we're all in agreement. And the problem, that's why when Peter goes and there's nothing left to say, but it's a good comment. And I totally agree. I kind of thought the planning and stuff really needs to be going on, because when do we end school? When's the school year out?
Right before Memorial Day.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we've probably got to hit the deck running, and you can't hit the deck running without having some direction and guidance. That's really going to be not the same old summer school as, you know, as Peter's alluding to. So anybody else have any comments? Well, Trustee Land, did you ever take your hand down, or was that, you just leave it up perpetually?
No, I took it down and I put it back up. That's the whole thing.
I tried to take it down and I figured
left.
out I can't take it down.
I took it down. You left and I put it back up because
again, the power dropped or the internet dropped. Anyway, say your piece.
Okay. Again, I'm just going to echo, like Peter, exactly what I'm thinking. That's why I started the whole point about really focusing on goal 2, you know, that one, because exactly what he said. Why are we rebuilding it? Why don't we rebuild it the different way and tear it apart and put it back together in a new way? I know that's radical thinking, but we have some really desperate times right now, and we're not getting the answers that we need to solve the problems for our most vulnerable kids. So we've got to think outside the box and do exactly what he said. And there's more. And I'm going to just repeat what Linda said too, engagement. It has to be about changing engagement.
Say something new. Something new.
I'm just going to echo that last one point. Small class size or different times, and also clubs. And we've talked about this before. Clubs and how you connect kids to the school is important as well. So we need that as part of what we're talking about.
You want to get this free for all?
Yeah, I was wondering, like, what does the evaluation look like, and like, how is it assessed, and like, what tools are we using? What I agree. I think that we do need to do things differently. It's not going to be the same. And like Peter said, you know, there are things that haven't been working for as long as we know. So the planning, like you were saying, but so it's the how for me, like what's going to be important to certain communities? How are we going to pull that information out? Because I think we need to really like ask everybody. And I don't want to keep hearing from the same people, because I know what they think already, but where are the communities that are not here, that are not representing their own areas, you know, their own communities? So because everyone's going to have different experiences and different opinions and different ways of doing things. So I just really want to make sure that everyone has input.
Trustees Lees, Dwyer. Trustees Dwyer.
Oh, thank you. I wanted to piggyback on what Peter said because I hadn't given this any real thought about the 8th graders who will come to us as freshmen next fall and what we can do as a district to be prepared for them and prepare them now. And, is that another summer school, project where we have so many weeks where they all go to summer school? I don't know, but I think this is a time when we're going to have students who have been either on Zoom, not on Zoom, participating, not participating, whatever, and how we gauge their needs and how they can succeed in high school. It's got to be different. And I really share his concerns with that. The other part of that though is that as much as, gee, we should be having people out there reaching out, finding out what's going on. What can we do with the elementaries? How's this going? We have to be sensitive to fatigue in our own employees because we only have so many people. And who is going to do this work? Who's going to be so focused on a summer school like we've never had, and reaching out. So I think we have to be sensitive to that, to the needs of the people who are actually doing all of this work. That's it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, and I think that's, I think this is going to be an interesting transition because I think that that's a real issue that both from the student standpoint and from the staff standpoint, we're going to hit this summer with some real fatigue issues. And so I think we need to give that a lot of thought. And I don't know what the answer is right now, but I think we do need to give it a lot of thought because there is a transition issue involved in this, as how do you get some time, some recovery time built in there, but at the same time realizing that you've got a real learning loss issue that needs to be addressed. And you've got to balance those two things for this summer. But I think we need to be thinking ahead to the following summer and doing some planning for that. And we need to be talking, to the governor's people as they're planning and where he's trying to, or he's at least talking about putting some additional money forward and possibly extending the school year with some additional money. I think all of this needs to be, we need to have some voices out there saying, yes, we got to do some things differently. Otherwise, California was an educational disaster area before this hit, before we ever had a pandemic. Man, if we don't do something different, we're not going to have a workforce in 10 years. This is going to be a whole generation that is just lost.
I believe you. Now, one thing, Peter, you had me, I think everybody was going along with you, but I kind of didn't agree with what you said, because you said, okay, summer school, and we got to look forward to the next summer school. But I think what we're saying here is we got to remake the way we educate, period. And no longer think of it as summer, because it's going to be something akin to year round. How do we do this? How do we continually assess student performance? How do we identify people who need support just as soon as possible? How do we get them that support? And maybe we no longer track by freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in terms of academics. And we look at those kind of classifications. It's just the whole thing is on the table. So I'm not,
Right. I think that's been a possibility for a long time too.
The only thing we need is the money and, you know, some teachers that, to help us be our partners as we go through this. So what else?
One of the things that I think is important is bringing kids back to campus. I know that is the hugest struggle right now, and it's an impasse. We have to think differently, even if it's to offer certain classes at certain times, just sporadically at each school, creating opportunities like that. I know we're in purple. I know the difficulties. I know the struggles that we have, but we have to start looking down the road of what it's going to look like. And I know we've been offered the blended chance, and you know and I think that's great when we can get to that hybrid model. That's great, but again, thinking outside the box, what is possible, what can be brought on site, what's people are willing to do, even if it's out of the regular schedule. I think breaking down the schedule is important, where it's beyond just 6 periods, 7 periods a day, 12 periods a day. You know, what can be offered at different times. And that goes back to what Bob is saying about there's not a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. It's flexible time, flexible flowing as you get better and better in mastery of your subject matter. I think it's important, and the foundations need to be there. So the addition, you know, thinking on top of things is working with our partner districts. How can we assist them? How can we get help with them and work in partnership with them? What are their innovations that are working and not working? And, you know, because we inherit the kids that they give us, you know, and how can we work with them on that? We don't do nearly enough on that.
Yeah,
Well, we have, DTEC's been doing that for, you know, the last 5 years. So we have, you know, an example that we helped create, you know, operating just down the road from us, that we can at least draw on some of their experience, because they've tried their best to get rid of this is all 9th grade curriculum, this is all 10th grade curriculum. You know, they've said you can be in 9th grade English and be in 12th grade math simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing, and we're in a countdown, so we got like 19 minutes to distill this. 18 minutes to distill this. You know, one thing I want to talk about, when we were talking about returning, and we're still talking about returning to campus, we talked about flexibility. You know, the more people talk, you start hearing people saying, I mean, you know, okay, the vaccine is here. Apparently the plan to distribute the vaccine is way behind the vaccine. And I think a lot of us thought that magically come May 31, at some point, we were all going to be vaccinated, get our 2 shots, and everybody was going to be back. Well, it's not happening. And you're starting to hear people saying impacts going into subsequent years and stuff. And I think we really need to continue to be vigilant and flexible. I mean, we need to get the kids, you know, get everybody back, the students, the employees. We need to be prepared, but, you know, catching up, we haven't even got through the, you know, where we are now to get to a position where we can get into re-engineering and remaking the school year and the curriculum. And I think that kind of presents a challenge, and that's way beyond us. And, you know, and things like funding, you know, the funding from the state, and, you know, and Newsom is promising everybody a boatload of money, you know, and I don't know how much, you know, how much of that is we're really going to get at this point. But I mean, I'm just saying that from a standpoint of we got our eye on that end goal, but we've got to have some flexibility, because we're not going to just get there like, and okay, we all get on the school bus. Okay, we're here. Everybody gets off the bus. It's going to be a long journey potentially.
What are some of the things, though, that we can pull from in people's communities already? I mean, just culturally, like, what are things that are really helping our students that, you know, that really draw them out, that really engage them right now? Like, is there an activity that they're doing that we don't have to necessarily use in like make it academic, so they're not like forced to do one more class or whatever, you know, like something more engaging. I don't know, has there been any talk about like anything amongst, you know, their own communities now?
Is that a question to me, Leah? I mean,
Just in general to everyone.
yeah, I mean, I think that our schools have been, when we're in person, have been increasingly able to, you know, whether it's their Latino Parents Organization or other groups like that, to reach out, or whether it's the parent education series that you may, what's it called? Shoot, now I've forgotten, but those kinds of things have been really successful. But what you know, and then the other part I'd say is our town halls with our Latino parents have been way more successful in terms of getting kids, staff, parents, community members out than ever before on the virtual process. So we're learning a lot about ways to reach families in the Zoom environment that are going to spill over into when we get back into place.
Like with the kids, I mean, yeah, definitely. On, you know, in certain parent groups that I've been part of, yeah, we've had like a ton of parents now, as opposed to before where people just couldn't get there, you know. But
Right.
with the kids, like, I don't know, are there any local artists or musicians or stuff that engages them that way that might alleviate some time from the, you know, day-to-day just always.
We've been having conversations with our activities directors about, you know, what they're doing, and there's a lot going on, most of which frankly I hadn't been keeping up with, but in terms of virtual clubs, music opportunities, I'll send you some links to some of the concerts that our students did that are just extraordinary in this virtual environment. So there's a lot of good work going on and engagement with students, but it's not as visible as it could or should be.
Mm-hmm.
Trustees, Lees, Dwyer, Linda.
Leah, in the recent past, we made all of the football games and everything free. So the kids, so that really boosted the attendance from what I could see. When I would go to a football game at San Mateo, instead of some kids hanging around the fence, they were all in. So things like that were really building community. COVID shut it all down for all of them. And that's the hard part, because we can't promote face-to-face gatherings like that, because that's where we get surges. But at the same time, that's really what they need. So I find it really frustrating that we can't have football games, and yet that would do so much for our students to be able to come together in that. And we did the same thing for the musicals and the plays and any sports. And you really did see so many kids attend, and I really think it made a big difference. But I would love to hear about what's going on, Kevin, and if that could be, if you had the activity directors give you a little report you can incorporate into a weekly, it'd be great to know what they're doing and how they're interacting with students. The other thing is the whole back to school thing and having kids in school. I'd really love to hear the principals' plans. What are the principals doing? What do they see as what they could do on their sites? Because every site is different, and the communities can be different. So I would really like to hear from them at some point soon on what they have planned, what they're doing, what their vision is for connecting students and bringing them back to school. Thank you, Mr. Griffin.
You're welcome. So, you know, one of the other things that we're having another Black Parent BSU, and I think, you know, I am kind of surprised how many BSUs are in the district. It's not one at every campus. Right. And I was a little surprised because, you know, it was like when I grew up, they didn't have them, and then when they had them everywhere, and everybody was very active in the BSU. But we have an upcoming event with the sponsored or led by the Black parents, and we actually have some students. And I think this is one of the deals. The first first one we had a lot of old geezers talking, and young people listening. It was like a webinar, and they couldn't really say what was on their mind. So we're changing the format, and actually we have some students who will be active participants, and I think that will help bring, when you're able to get people, the stakeholders from that don't have a voice, and now all of a sudden they have a voice. Hopefully that will engage a lot of students, and we will hear stuff. And this is the kind of stuff that we needed to hear, whether we had COVID or not, but there wasn't really a forum, and it wasn't a priority given to the need to hear them till people started shooting Black people in the streets for no reason. So that was sort of a separate, independent issue that came about, but it's brought about that a lot of African Americans do not feel like they're part of the system here, and they're just being overlooked. So anyway, forgive me for my terminologies. Yes, Leah.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Greg. Your blue hand. You're waving this hand, and your blue hand was up. But Lydia,
No.
Leah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's great. And I'm looking at all of the goals under communication. That's what came to my mind was, yeah, talking with stakeholders, and definitely the students are the ones that now need to let out what they're feeling, especially because they have so much uncertainty right now. But yeah, I like watching all of these groups like the Grassroots Law Project come up, and all these equity groups, and like the kids are mobilizing, which are great, which is really great, and having them engage others. But even like I was saying, even with the parents, like asking parents that don't always get involved, like what helps your child, like what's helping your family right now, like what's helping you guys stay afloat. But definitely with the kids, and even engaging them with us, like with the board, this is the perfect time to say, well, look, this is how like we do things here, and this is how things work, and maybe even like creating some new partnerships with them, and like mentoring them, and I'm sure there's things that we've had in our lives that have helped us, so maybe even draw out that much more communication with them.
Thank you. Trustee Land, take your hand down.
No, I have to do that to unmute myself.
No, Tom, take your blue hand down.
Oh, okay. Blue hand is down. All right.
Poor
So,
Bob.
Actually, Bob, just to expand on what you were talking about, your example is a perfect example of what we really need to do in our district, is really go from those, okay, the old guys and the old geezers talking, to let's talk about what we're feeling and what we're doing in part of our courses. I mean, it's student agency. I mean, and I'm talking to Julia right now, Julia Kemke in Curriculum and Instruction, is trying to promote student choice, student voice, and student agency. Really, we keep saying that, and we do certain examples of it. And I really feel like, Mark did a good job of really promoting the voice of our student board members here, and we can continue that. But I also think it has to happen in the classes as well. I know teachers are doing it in isolated pockets, but we really need to make an effort to really put this as a priority, because if you're online, how are you going to be engaged? Well, if you have a choice between presenting this or doing this, that might actually be something that they want to do, or they want to present something, or they want to present it to the city council, or however. There are definitely ways that we can make the idea of learning more palatable. Again, DTech is one of those design. They have answers as well. So I think we need to explore that. But I loved your example, Bob, because it's a perfect example of what we need to do.
Well, I got another better example, and I can tell from being engaged with the young faculty that they're tired of listening to the geezers, and I think they think the geezers ought to be listening more to them. I was looking at the 13 attendees that are still there, And, you know, but I think that's part of the issue and the challenge. If we're all in this and we're all going to be a team, you know, we don't sit up high and hand out edicts. I mean, you know, we're responsible. We have some obligations that we have to fulfill. But I think, you know, teachers in the district are stakeholders just like the students are, and everybody and classified, everybody needs to feel like they have a voice and they can say, you know, how, and every once in a while, certainly we get, you know, if it's a return to school deal, and we will get an articulate vocal person who wants to speak, who's an employee of the district, and they'll have a compelling thing. But I think the vast majority of them don't necessarily feel like they can come here and present and be heard, and their, you know, and their, you know, and their comments be thoughtfully considered. So.
Good point. 5 minutes.
Yes.
So are there other thoughts that folks have about the goals? I mean, I think as I reviewed them, I think, you know, we did some good work on the bond program. It's got, we're going to, I had a meeting this week and with the stakeholders, and we're going to look at the issuance time and maybe push it back a few months. And I'll be updating the board about that. I think the work around the sale of Crestmore is moving along just about as well as it can. You know, we're getting, now it's sort of after your approval, it's getting paperwork signed, and then DR Horton has to do their stuff. I think the communication pieces, we've mentioned a little bit about how Zoom has changed this world, and I think we've responded fairly well to that. Some of the equity work is hard to measure, but I'm really pleased with that. And I think, you know, this, the one, I'd say maybe the two most impactful pieces, at least for me, have been the student teach-in, well, three maybe. The student teach-in, attending some of the events that Sammy has put on for our Latino parents, and then the African American Unity and the community activities are the three that sort of have been much more sort of a step function different than what we've been doing on that. It's a different time, I think, to be a leader. These equity issues are going to stay with us, and you know, we have to. I think the board is anxious and our community is anxious to see their schools as a vehicle for social justice, and we need to continue to work on that. And you'll be seeing things like that, and you see it when people come to speak at board meetings.
Yeah.
Okay, can we do just a second of, was this helpful? It certainly was for me. I usually take notes during our meetings. I think I did way more than usual here. And so you can look for some feedback from the organization. Hopefully you'll see the impact of this as we go forward, just in terms of that. And Bob, you and Peter and I, we have some work to do around planning the agenda for the 21st, you know, just in response to what we've had here. So. Trustee
Land.
All right. So when you guys do that, you're going to do what we talked about, which is time sensitive. How long is it?
Well, we've been doing that. We haven't been documenting it because, okay, you know, you can bet that I am a quantitative guy, and I want to know how long each item is anticipated being. It has very seldom does it ever match the plan, but it's not because of lack of trying. I mean, you know, because I think it's important to manage the time so we spend quality time on the important issues, and we will continue to do that. Anybody else want to weigh in on this shindig? I'm pulling every old word I know out of my vocabulary. You guys, these are words you probably never heard before. I mean, you know, I for one actually think there was a lot of benefit because the kind of comments we got were not necessarily structured and had to be formed in response to a particular issue. So I think there was sufficient latitude that people were able to kind of talk about different issues and And the issue was not in a box. It was not framed. It was not stuck in a box. And so that while the comments were a little far afield sometimes, they all they related, and I think they hung together. And I think to me, it was beneficial. It was a beneficial session. At
Okay,
least three of us thought that. The other two were either frozen or ready to go.
okay. Well, I think I think we've had productive meetings when we've ended with a time certain ending. So this was really helpful for me, and I appreciate your time. And we'll see you on the 21st, and we'll have conversations between then and now.
Okay,
Okay.
our work here is done. The meeting's adjourned. Bye.
Bye, everybody.